This is the review for the relating factors and zeros. So we're looking at this first question, and we're asked to factor it. And so when we look at that, we need to take and look and see whatever this last number is what goes down here. Whatever the first thing is, goes in the top part of the box. And their product goes in the top part of our X. The middle number goes in the bottom part, and this is what we're trying to get a sum of, and this is what we're trying to find a product of. So we want to know what can multiply to give me 8x squared, that can add to give me 6x, and that would be the 2x and 4x. They're both positive because we're a sum of positive factors. And so an x and a 2 can factor out of both of those. And an x and a 4 can factor out of both of those, giving me a final answer of x plus 2, x plus 4. And since it's a trinomial, that means I can use the box. Sometimes there are shortcuts that can work easier. And so always look for a GCF. And so there's not a greatest common factor, then you can go ahead and just go straight to the box. And so we have the x squared, negative 36, that multiplies to give us a negative 36x squared. That will give me a sum of a negative 16x. Well, the two things that can multiply to give me a negative 36, that would give me a sum of negative 16, are your 18 and 2. But we want to have them opposite signs, so they have a difference of 16 because it's negative up here. So negative 2x and positive 18x would give me a sum of a positive 16x. So that's not what I want. So what I need to do is have it to where my larger one is the negative, and my smaller one is the positive. And so when I fill that into my boxes, I factor out the x here, I factor out the 2 here, x and a negative 18. On this next one, we look to see, is there a number that can divide into all of these numbers? And the answer is yes, there's a 9. And since the first sign is negative, I'm going to factor out a negative 9. But there's also an x in all of these. So I factor out my lowest power of x. So negative 9x to the 4th divided by negative 9x squared gives me a positive 1x squared. Positive 45x cubed divided by negative 9x squared gives me a negative 5x. And a lot of you are having troubles with this sign here and this excuse me, sign at the end. And just don't forget you're dividing by that negative. So negative 9x squared divided by negative 9x gives me a positive 1. And then you came down here to do the x, and then you ran into a problem. You're like, okay, we had 1x squared, and we need to find one that can give me a sum of a negative 5x. And there was no way to make this. So that meant this is the farthest you can go. So let's look at this next one. When I look at all of this, there is a common x in all of them, and an 8 can divide into all of them. So I'm going to divide them all by 8x. So 8x squared divided by 8x gives me 1x cubed. Negative 16x cubed divided by 8x gives me a negative 8x. a negative 2x squared. A positive 56 divided by 8 gives me a positive 7x. And a negative 24x divided by 8 gives me a negative 3. So then I look to see, because this is a four-termed one, and I'm looking at factoring over the reals, is there anything that's a common factor here that's also a common factor here? And so how we look there, okay, well, I have a 1 that I can factor x squared that I can factor out of these. Now leave me x minus 2. Well, here, I can factor out a 1, and that'll leave me 7x minus 3. These two are not equal, so that doesn't work. So the final answer is this answer. Now, on this next 4, you can use the box, but there's a shorter way of doing it. And so if you look at your first term, and you can take the square root of it, and the middle term is made up of 2x times something. No, not smiley face, sorry. Times something is going to equal 8x, and that works. Then you can use smiley face substitution. So 2x is equal to our smiley face. And so if I was to rewrite this, this would be smiley face squared plus 4 smiley faces, because that's what this number here is, plus 3. And you can go to the box, and I'll kind of show you real quick on this one how to use the box, but you don't need the box. And so we want a product of 3 smiley faces, and we want it to sum up to 4 smiley faces. So that's 3 smiley faces and a smiley face. And so I can pull out a smiley face. I can pull out a 3, and it'll be positive. I can pull out a smiley face. And I can pull out a 1. And so that smiley face is the same thing as 2x. So 2x plus 1 and 2x plus 3. Now looking at the next one, same trick is going to work. We have the square root of 121x squared is equal to 11x. And 44x is made up of 11x times 4. And so that's going to equal our smiley face. And so without using the box, we can just use the x. And so we know we have smiley face squared plus 4 smiley faces minus 12. Well, I need to figure out what's going to multiply to give me negative 12 that would add to give me 4. And so that would be a positive 6 and a negative 2. Well, in the beginning of both parentheses is my 11x. And then I have the 6 and the negative 2. You can again use the box method in this if you would like to, but you do not have to. So we're going to do the same thing. Square root of 169 x squared is equal to 13x. 13x times 10 gives me 130. And so we want to know, we have 13, and then we have negative 10 smiley faces. plus 24. So we're going to know what multiplies to give us 24, but yet adds to give you negative 10. And so when I do that, I have negative 6 and a positive 4. And that means that my smiley face is 13x. That's my answer. So the square root of 9x squared is 3x. 3x times something is going to give me 30x, and that would be a 10. So smiley face squared plus 10 smiley faces minus 11. So it multiplies to give me negative 11, but yet adds to give me a 10. And that would be a positive 11 and negative 1. And my smiley face was 3x. So in this next set, we're going to be doing factoring by grouping. So this first two terms, we want to see what can come out of those. And what can come out of those is going to be an x squared. Then I look to see what can come out of my next set. And you always drop down this sign. And so if I take negative 9x divided by negative 9, I come up with the x. When I take positive 54 divided by negative 9, I end up with a negative 6. These two match, so I write it down once. And then I write down what was left over. Now, since this is a higher power, I'm going to take its square root of both terms, and that means I can do the difference of squares. So my x minus 6 still is there, but now I have x plus 3, x minus 3. Same idea is going to apply over here to this next one. But first, I have something in all of them. So I factor it out, and x is in all of them. So that gives me x cubed minus 3x squared minus x plus 3. So that x is just going to hang out and be brought down as I go through this whole process. Now let's look and see on my first two terms, what can be brought out of those two? An x squared. And it'll leave me x minus 3. On my second two terms, yeah, bring down that negative, and then nothing can factor out of it, so I'm going to put a negative 1. So x divided by negative 1 gives me a positive x. 3 divided by negative 1 gives me a negative 3. So I'm going to write down that parenthesis, x minus 3, from these two. And then I'm going to write what was left over. And so it's squared, so I'm going to see, can I take the square root of it? And so that means I can factor that further. So x times x minus 3 times x minus 1, x plus 1. on this one, we already have it factored to where it's a trinomial, so that means I need to use the box. And so the product is going to be 64,000, or 6,400 x to the fourth. And I want it to be negative 164 x squared. So there are two things that can multiply to give me 6,400 and would add to give me 164. And that would be a negative 100 x squared and a negative 64 x squared. And so we have our x to the fourth and our 6,400. So that brings out an x squared, a negative 100 x squared, negative 64. And looking at these terms, I can take the square root of x squared, and it gives me x. I can take the square root of 100, and it gives me 10. So this first one is going to factor into x plus 10, x minus 10. The second one, I can take the square root of x squared, and that gives me x. I can take the square root of 64, and that gives me 8. So x plus 8, x minus 8. This next one is a binomial. And that means I need to look to see, can I take the square root or cube root? Square root of 49x squared is equal to 7x. Square root of 4y squared is equal to 2y. So that gives us x plus 2y and x minus, or 7x minus 2y. So this is a different one. It's different than what we did before. We could still take the 64 and take the square root of it, and that gives me 8x. And I have the y to the fourth, and I can take the square root of it and get y squared. If the product of those two times 2 is equal to this middle number, then you can shortcut the factoring to 8x squared, 8x, this middle sign, plus y squared, that whole thing squared. So let's do the next one. Square root of 16x to the fourth is equal to 4x to the second. Square root of 169 is 13. 13 times 4 is 52x to the second. And if I'm going to double that, it's going to end up with 104x squared. So that checks out. So I have 4x squared plus 13 squared. And this middle sign is what comes down. Now, this is a power of 3. So that means we're looking at cube roots of x cubed and the cube root of 8. So you write down the middle, the first one with the middle sign. Then you square, find the product, and square And that's the answer. This is always opposite. This is always same. So we're going to do the cube root of x cubed, which is x, the cube root of 216, which is 6. So x, middle sign is negative, and we square, product, square. And it's always opposite sign and positive. So on this set, you'll be taking and plugging in the values into the function. And this is like whenever you have x plus 3 and you're trying to see if it's a factor. This will give you the remainder. So p of negative 3 means I'm going to plug in a negative 3 all the way across. And that's going to give you negative 3 to the 4th plus 5 times negative 3 cubed. 8 times negative 3 squared plus 15 times negative 3 plus 6. And then when you do that, you get 60. And so that means this x plus 3 is not a factor. And then we can do the same thing over here on this next one, p of negative 2. So this is like asking, is x plus 2 a factor? And so we plug in a negative 2 to the 4th plus 3 times negative 2 cubed minus 6 times negative 2 squared minus 8 times negative 2. And that gives you a 0. So x plus 2 is a factor. Trying to determine if something's a factor, that means that is negative 3 plugged in going to equal 0? And so we wouldn't know when 0 is equal to negative 3 cubed plus 9 times negative 3 squared plus a times negative 3 plus 15. And so we have a negative 27. 9 times 9 is positive 81. Negative 3 times a is negative 3a plus 15. These two give me a negative 12. Negative 12 and 81 give me a positive 63. No, 69 minus 3a. And if I add the 3a to both sides, I get 3a is equal to positive 69. Divide both sides by 3. A is equal to 23. We're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to work with the opposite of this. That means it's going to be a p of 7 that needs to equal 0. So 0 is equal to 7 to the 4th minus 4 times 7 cubed plus a times x squared minus 8x. Oh, and that x squared is going to be 7 squared. 8 times 7 minus 42. So 49 times 49 is equal to 2,401. 49 times 7 is 343 times 4 is 1372 plus 49a minus 56 minus 42. And so we want to see what is 241 or 2,401 minus 1372 minus 56 minus 42. And we find out that's all equal to a positive 931. And we still have that 49a. So I need to move the 931 over to the other side. And 49a is equal to negative 931. And if I divide both sides by 49, a is equal to a negative 19. So if we're looking at doing each of these quotients and dividends, so we have the x minus 4 we're starting with, and the 2x cubed. So 2x cubed divided by x gives me 2x squared. I multiply coming down, and that gives me a negative 8x squared. And so now I need to complete, which is negative 8x squared plus something is going to equal a negative 7x squared. That something is a 1x squared. Divide going up. Gives me an x. Multiply coming down, negative 4x. Negative 4x plus something is going to equal a negative 19x. That something is a negative 15x. Divide, go up. Multiply coming down. 60 plus something is equal to 60. 0. So that means this is a perfect factor. Which means that x minus 4 times x squared plus x minus 15 is the correct answer. This is right as the answer as a product of the divisor and quotient plus the remainder. X cubed divided by x plus 3 gives me x squared. Multiply coming down, 3x squared. These two need to add to give me 8x squared, which gives me 5x squared. Divide going up, which gives me 5x, 15x. Complete the diagonal. 15x plus something is equal to 5x. Or no, is equal to 7x. So that something is a negative 8x. Negative 8 times 5, or times 3 is Negative 24, if I want to get that up to 5. So that something would be 9. It would be 29. So my answer is x plus 3, x squared plus 5x minus 8 plus 29.